Are we on? Are we on? I'm ever so hopeful that you'll be able to hear me right now. My God, this computer is loud. There's going to be a fan noise, I reckon. You're going to have to deal with that. This also means that there's going to be a fan noise in the videos that I intend to make using this live stream. What are we doing today? What are we doing ever? I'm going to try and explain music theory to myself. Okay, so you just saw, maybe you did, I don't know, probably. If you can see this channel, you can see the one I'm about to talk about. Rick Beato did another live stream about modes where he goes crazy on the guitar and he explains things that I can't understand because I don't know enough. And I don't like it, but also I do. It's something to explore. How do I test to see, like, okay, what's happening here? Hey, how's that? Okay, I'm going to try playing the guitar. And I don't like it. It's something to explore. Hey, how's that? Okay, I'm going to try playing the guitar. Okay, so it seems like you can hear everything. I don't know another way to test that, so I'm watching my own shit. All right, stop. Enough. All right, thank you. It's okay. Nobody comes at the beginning. Okay, so Rick Beato does this video on modes, and then I'm thinking, what on earth, I ask you. So I'm going to try to explain modes to myself, and I've set up a live stream here, and I thought, because I tried to explain it to myself, and then I thought this should be a live stream. I should make a live stream out of this. So I've kind of worked it out a little bit. I'm going to try to audibly understand modes and what it all means, and then I'm going to try also to communicate that to you in a way that makes sense, and hopefully create for you a treasure trove of secrets about how to learn music theory and the guitar. Music theory particularly oriented toward the guitar. I've got my camera set up with a nice little, you can see there my hand is there, and it's a hand. And so we're going to explore here. So what I've got on the screen is a diagram. Just beneath where you can see my hand is a diagram. That's all the notes labeled on your guitar to the sort of orientation that's what you're looking at if you look down at your fretboard while you're holding your guitar. So like if you see where there's a little number 5 there, right above the number 5, that's the 5th fret, and that's the 6th string or your E string, and that's going to be an A. So if I go 5th fret on my 6th string, there's my A, right? A little reference for you if you need to find a note. At the top, where it's labeled C Ionian, you can see there's our first mode. That is the most recognizable version of the sacred pattern. What's the sacred pattern? Did I call it the sacred pattern? I think I did. So it's called the sacred pattern because we're doing like we're doing a thing where music is magic. Music is the soft magic system of reality. Okay? And it coincides. There's mathematics with this. There's physics with this. There's emotions. This is where mathematics and physics and the human spirit, where we use the magic systems of reality to create the soft system of the soft magic system of reality, which is art. Art is the soft magic system of reality. It's where we change the vibe. It's where we make you feel something. So starting from the very beginning, I hope that this will be a good lesson for beginner guitar players, beginner musicers even in general, but particularly for those orienting themselves towards the guitar. So we have a guitar here. Now, just to kind of get at it really quick, you've got your fretboard. That's the piece of wood that this is. Okay, you've got frets. That's these vertical metal bars. And they count up. We have open, then we have the first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, fifth fret. It goes all the way up to like 22, maybe 24 frets. Who knows? It depends on what kind of guitar you have. There's many, many frets, okay? It looks like, if you put it this way, it looks like a ladder because there's many frets. And then you have 6 strings. So each time that you press your finger down, like if I say press my finger down on the 2nd fret, I'm going to go just before the 2nd fret, like just on this side of the 2nd fret, and I'm going to press down, and I'm going to play a F sharp or whatever, okay? Then you can put your fingers anywhere, like, and do that, and it changes the tone. The shorter that you make this part, the higher the note gets, all right? That's the basics of the guitar, but it's also the basics of all kinds of things. And it's happening because it's vibrating, okay? So it's vibrating a certain number of times per second, and then if you play a higher note, it's vibrating like more times, okay? That's more basic stuff. So just think for a second here. I have one note, and then I have another note, okay? So if I play one note to the next note, there's a relationship in terms of the number of vibrations per second. It's the pitch, right? It goes up in pitch or down in pitch. How much does it go up or down in pitch? It goes 1 semitone. And we just decided that partly because it made sense, but partly because it worked out mathematically. There's a mathematics behind all of this that makes sense. So you have to kind of trust the system for a little bit and just like understand. There's 12 total notes. Okay? So you have okay? And then once you get to this one, that is exactly double the number of vibrations per second or whatever. Exactly. It's vibrating exactly twice as fast as the first one. And it is the first one. Okay? So thinking about it in terms of like, what's a scale? You already know what a scale is, probably. You've lived on the planet for a little while. You know that a scale is, if I was just like, put a gun to your head and make you say a scale, you would go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? So you would do that. That's what we call the C major scale. Or it's just a major scale. You could play it starting at any pitch and it would be the major scale if you do that orientation of notes. What orientation of notes do you mean? So we're starting there. If we go up a semitone, that's not far enough. So we have to go up a whole tone. Okay? So then we go up another whole tone. And then we go up 1 semitone. And then we go up a whole tone. And then another one. And then another one. And then a semitone. And that gets us to our beginning. That gets us to the other side of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You notice how it starts with the word do and it ends with the word do? Because that's the thing. And you can then repeat it. So you can go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And then you can repeat that. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? And in every instance, every note has another note that's exactly 1 octave. We're using 8 notes, so we call it an octave. It's 1 octave above. So C goes all the way up to C because it's the same note. So we call it the same thing. It's C and C. Oh, sorry. There you go. There's your C. Now you see how there's not really, if I play this note, okay, and I play this note, you're not really getting much of a vibe change, because these notes are actually vibrating at very similar wavelengths. The high note is vibrating at double the vibrations per second of the low note. So there's not really, like, the relationship is very concise. The relationship is very straightforward. They're the same note. It's the same note 1 octave higher. You can do it here too. There it is, another note. That's another octave higher. Here you can go 2 octaves apart. And you notice, yeah, that's 2 notes. It's not really 2 separate pitches though, right? If you stop these at the same time, they'll both be at 0, right? If you know what I'm saying? So, what if I give you that first relationship again that we talked about a second ago, the semitone. A semitone, we call that a minor second. What does it invoke for you? Is that the same note if I play them separately? What if I played them both at the same time? Does that sound the same? See how you can feel them just vibrating wrong off each other? They're not really working well together. It's putting a certain vibe in the room, right? It's putting a certain vibe in the way that your thoughts are going, okay? What if I try a whole tone? Instead of a semitone, we'll do a tone, right? So, is that a different vibe? What if I was to play this? Right? You're about to get attacked by a shark. Okay? What if I do this? Right? It's a way different vibe. And all we did was change one semitone. So changing a semitone in the relationship between 2 notes, that changes the vibe. And it actually is changing because we're now vibrating at this speed and then like 102% of this speed. So it's kind of these 2 vibrations, right? They're kind of just beating each other to death. They're just bashing off of each other and they're not syncing up well, okay? Try it with the next tone up. That's a little better. That's kind of okay, right? We don't hate it. It's working definitely better than, right? Let's try the next one up. So we just did the semitone, and then we did the tone. Or you could say we did the minor second. So here's our first. Here's our minor second. Here's our major second, right? There's a difference there in the way that the notes have a relationship with each other. And if you play them at the same time, right, you can see that they're not friends, right? As much as these 2 are. Okay, so let's try what we would call the minor third. So instead of we had 1 tone being the minor second, two semitones, sorry, 1 semitone. We had 1 semitone being the minor second. We had 2 semitones being the major second. We had 3 semitones being the minor third. What do you think 4 semitones is going to be? The major third, right? So let's think about it that way, and then we'll go minor second, not a great relationship. Major second, It's not the best relationship. Well, that one's not bad. That's not too bad. That's kind of, there's sort of a vibe that you get. Now let's play the major third. Is that a different vibe? Do you feel how that's kind of, it evokes a different sort of feeling within you? There's our minor third. There's our major third. If you multiply the number of vibrations per second of your one note, of your tonic note, right? Multiply that by 1.25 and you get the major third. If you multiply it by 1.5, you get the perfect fifth. So let's just kind of go along in this major scale here. Okay? The major scale being up. There's our do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Right? There's our major scale. So we have the major second. We kind of, it's not bad. We have the major third. We have the perfect fourth. We have the fifth. The sixth. The seventh. And then we have the octave. Now these all have different feelings with them, right? So if I was to, we're playing our C again still. Don't worry, we're still playing C. We're just playing it on a different string, a couple frets away. Because remember, our notes are everywhere. All the notes are everywhere. Okay? That's another little lesson. All the notes are everywhere. Here, I'm going to play the C major scale. Ready? Now, I'm going to start with my hand closest to the headstock and play the C major scale up and down. Okay? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Now I'm going to move my hand up the fretboard. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Now move it up a little bit further. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. A little further. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. A little further. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. A little further. Up. Ah! Let's try that again. Okay, what that shows us is that everywhere on the fretboard you can find C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Okay? C, 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 C. Ah. Okay? There's many C's, there's many D's, there's many E's. You can look at the diagram just below my hand and you can see that there's a bunch of circles that are green and they have the letter C in them. C is everywhere, B is everywhere, A is everywhere, G is everywhere. So we can play C major. We can go down here by the headstock. We can go all the way up the fretboard. We can go all the way up here. you also have different octaves of C. Okay? So you can actually play C, or you can play C. So we can go. Three octaves of C. Okay? Right across your fretboard. They're all there. It's all on your fretboard and all repeats. I mean, think about it mathematically. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 24 frets. You have 6 strings. 6 strings times 24 frets. It's a 50 million billion different notes that you could play, but there's only 12 notes. So they have to repeat. Okay? So you have your C major scale. Okay? There's 2 octaves of your C major scale. And we can call them C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And that would be, if you start with the first note being a C, then you would call that the scale of C major. If you do that exact same pattern, where we go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, right? But you start at D, then you would play tone, tone, you would play this D major scale, right? Okay? Because we're going from do to do. Where does this bring us? It brings us to the C Ionian scale. Now, if you'll see on the top left of your screen here, we have the C Ionian scale diagram. That's a fretboard for your guitar, and that's all the notes that we're going to use in the C Ionian scale. We're starting with C because C has no sharp or flat notes that we have to use. We're using C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay? So where is that? Where is my black marker? What do I want to use? Hang on a second. So if we look at that as, we could look at that as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Or we could look at that as being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Right? Because the first and last ones are the same. So I could go like 1 being do. I could go 2 being re. 3 being mi. Fa. So. La. Ti. And do again. Right? Let's just fill the rest in so that we can kind of know what we're doing. Okay? So we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Except it's not always going to be that. But you can think of that as being what it is for the major scale. Okay? I don't know if we're going to keep that in the diagram. We'll think about it for later. Actually, I feel like it shouldn't go there. It should go, yeah, okay. We're going to erase that. And we're going to retake our choices here. But the point is, we're going to have 7 degrees in our scale before we get to the octave. And the octave is when you play the same note 1 octave higher than the original note. It's when you go up 1 octave. It's when you go up 8 notes to the 8th note, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Think of those as being degrees of a scale, right? I've screwed everything up here. Okay, so if I go the C Ionian, now we call it Ionian. That's what the major scale is. The major scale is the Ionian mode. So, you already know one mode right off the bat. Right? And it's the tonic degree. The first degree of the modes. And that's going to be the notes that we're actually going to be playing if we play that. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and it's going to repeat like that. So if at any point you go 8 notes higher, H, if you go 8 notes above from where you started, you will be at the same letter again. Just like do goes to do. So we have what we're looking at as being do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now let's just kind of quickly go through it and look at the differences in how many tones or semitones one note is to the next. C to D. Well, that's a tone. So I'm going to write T between them. D to E. That's a tone. So we're going to write tone in between them. E to F. Semitone. F to G. Tone. G to A. There's our tone. A to B. Tone. B to C. Semitone. And this is going to be a pattern that necessarily repeats the same way. Okay? So we have our tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Starting from the first degree of our scale and ending at the last degree of the scale. That's the differences. That's the intervals between one note and the next note. So your major third, right, that's going to be 2 full tones above your tonic note. Right? Now, if I was to play you something on the guitar to help you kind of remember what that sounds like. Right? There's your Steer It Up by Bob Marley. That first note, that first change, there's your major third. So if you did that major third anywhere, you could start playing a Bob Marley Steer It Up anywhere. Etc. Okay. Let's not worry about identifying the intervals so far. We'll worry about that later. Let's focus on what we've got here. We've got our C major scale. And then an octave up. And we're going C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's a high note. It's 2 octaves. Please don't fucking comment on my singing. So we have 2 octaves there. We've got that written on the board. We've figured out where the divine pattern is. In case you haven't figured it out, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. That's our divine pattern. Now we're going to do an experiment. We're going to stay just on C Ionian notes. Okay? We're only going to play C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Okay? Those are the only 7 notes that we're going to use. We're going to use them on different parts of the guitar. So what if I was to start from C and go to C? Okay? There's that. Okay? What if I started, though, using all these notes and start from D and go to D. What if I went from E to E? Okay? F to F. G to G. A to A. Up. B to B. And then C to C again. I get back to C to C. Okay. What we actually just did, big reveal, what we actually just did is we played all of the modes, but in different keys. So think about it as we went from do to do. When we start from C and we play the Ionian scale, that's do to do. What happens if we go re to re? Up. What if we go to mi to mi? Fa to fa. So to so. La to la. T to T. Or do to do again. Up. Well, we just played all the modes. When we went from D to D, we were playing the D Dorian scale. Okay? Because we were starting as if it's the second note in C major, but we're playing from D to D. We're playing the C major notes, but we're playing them starting at a different starting point and ending at the resolution from that starting point, the octave up, so that we can repeat the pattern. So hopefully you're able to hear the difference there. There's a difference in vibe. Okay? So when we go from re to re, or mi to mi, we're changing the notes that we're using. We're changing the orientation. We're not going tone, tone, semitone anymore. We're going a different way. So the next thing I would write down would be the Dorian mode. And there's going to be an explanation for why that's the next one, and it's going to make sense, I assure you. Okay? And what degree is it? Well, it's the second degree. So imagine for a second, we're going from D to D, but D is the second degree in the C major scale. So Dorian says, treat the starting note of your scale as if it was the second note in a major scale. So instead of playing the D major scale, that would be using D as do, right? What if we treat D like it's re? There's your D Dorian. Now with the magic of guitar, we can start our starting position for our hand in terms of just thinking what our hand is doing. Move that down 2 frets. There's your C Dorian, right? If this is D Dorian, if our hands do exactly the same pattern but start at C, it'll be C Dorian. Up. Or we could have the D major scale, the Ionian, C Ionian. See how you're getting a different vibe? We're playing a different vibration. We're playing a different relationship. Okay? So if I look at what the D Dorian, or if I look at what C Dorian is, meaning I'm treating C like it's the second note in a major scale instead of being the first note in a major scale, then I'm going to play up from C as if it was the second note in our B flat major scale. Okay, so here's our C Dorian. So we're going from re to re, essentially, right? So I could say that, like, Ionian is do to do. And I could say that Ionian is do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do. Okay. We'll just put that in there. I don't think you can actually see that on the screen, but it's fine. Okay, so treating C as if it is re instead of as if it is do, then we would play as if we're playing the B flat major scale, but we're starting at C and we're going to C. We're starting and ending at C, but C is re now instead of C is do now, right? What if C was re? Up. I gotta put this marker down. I can't feel the strings. Okay, what if C was re? Okay, so what do we have there? We have C. We have C. It's always going to be starting on C. I dropped my pick. It's gone forever. Okay, the next note that we're going to play in our Dorian, there's D. Same like before. The next note is E flat. Okay, the next note, well, that's an F, isn't it? And you can use your thing to identify the notes, or you can just learn the notes on your fretboard. I would highly recommend learning the notes on your fretboard. Okay, what's the next note in the scale? Well, it's a G. So far, so good. What note is that? Can you guess it's an A? Okay. What's the next note? What is that? Well, that's B flat. Okay. And then the last note is obviously going to be C. Okay. Let's just repeat that so that we have it out. So what do we have? Well, let's just fill out the rest like we did up here. So we're going to say that Dorian is starting from C to D, right? That's a tone. D to E flat, that's a semitone. E flat to F, that's a tone. F to G, tone. G to A, what's that? G to A, that's a tone. A to B flat, semitone. B flat to C, that's a tone. C to D, tone. D to E flat, semitone. Then we have E to E flat to F, F to G, G to A to B flat, right? And then we have B flat to C. So here's what we're going to do. I want this to be a little more highlighty. There's our sacred pattern, right? But where is it now? Where is it if we put it in the Dorian mode? Okay? Well, here it is. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. You can see that it's one flat back. Sorry, it's one fret back. It's one step back. It's 1 degree off. Right? And what if we start at this one? What if we made B flat the tonic? Tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, tone. How about that? Tone, tone, semitone, tone. Right. Tone. Root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. There's our B flat major right there. But we're starting on C. Okay? So when we play C, as if it was B flat major, we're playing C Dorian. Because C would be the second note. Right? So C is our 1, but C is our re. Re! Okay? So C is re. Right? So what can we say about Dorian is that it's re to re. Dorian re. The portrait of Dorian re. The portrait of the Dorian mode. Okay. Let's try and see if we can continue this pattern. What would be the next thing? It would be to play our C, but to play, from me to me. So let's keep with our C Ionian. Then we have our D Dorian. Then we have our E Phrygian. Let's see if we can get a vibe check out of the Phrygian mode. So the next degree that we're going to play with is Phrygian. and it's going to be the third degree, right? Oh, that's what I should do. I should put that here. Okay, we're changing the graph. Right? Okay, so then Phrygian is going to be me. Right? So if we start Phrygian, we want C to be our 1. That's what we're locking in place for this graph. Oh, fuck, I should probably change this diagram. Just so we can be clear here. What do we need? We need diagram to change to C Dorian. You will find that C Dorian is the same as B flat major. We've shifted the pattern slightly. So there's our C Dorian. Yep. See how it's got a little bit of a different vibe than if we were playing a C major with a C major Ionian scale. That was switching from C major to C Dorian, right? C Ionian to C Dorian. When you get a change in vibe, you might have just changed the scale a little bit. So let's think about C Phrygian. So the Phrygian would be starting from the 3rd degree. Let's start that relationship of notes at C and end at C. Okay, so let's think about what those notes would be. C, first note. Second note is going to be actually D flat. Okay. What's the next note going to be? It's going to be Fa. It's going to be an E flat. Then it's going to be an F. It's going to be a G. Okay, it's going to be an A. No, it's not. Okay, it's actually going to be a G sharp, A flat. Okay, the next note. And then B flat. And then C. Okay, so then we go A, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, up to C. And let's figure out what our tones and semitones are. C to D flat, that's a semitone. Okay? D flat to E flat, that's a tone. E flat to F, that's a tone. F to G, that's a tone. G to A flat, that's a semitone. A flat to B flat, that is a tone. B flat to C is a tone. And C flat to D flat is a semitone. And then we are going to we're going to locate our sacred pattern, right? And where did you think it was going to be except for exactly where it belongs? Where we're moving that sacred pattern back and back and back and back as we try and make sure that we're working things out in order. Okay? Now that we're reading this, I feel like things are going to start to come together a little better. What's the next one up? Okay? Just from like looking at the graph, what would you say is the next one up? Well, what's next in this column? Next in this column is obviously going to be a fourth degree, okay? And it's going to be Fa, right? So we're going to go from Fa to Fa, where Fa is going to be our root note in a scale that starts as the fourth degree of a major scale and goes to being the ending at the fourth degree of a major scale. This one is called Lydian. Right? So what's our Lydian scale? So again, we're going to want to start with C as our root for the Lydian scale. Now it's the fourth degree. So let's play our C major scale. Let's play our C Ionian. Let's actually pull up our Lydian scale here. C Lydian. Come on, baby. So there's our C Lydian scale. But thinking about what the Lydian scale is. Ionian. That was Dorian. Next. Here's your Phrygian. Here's your Lydian. So let's play our C Lydian scale. So there, what that would be our F Lydian scale. Starting at F, ending at F. Okay. What if we start that as C? Imagine that C is the fourth degree. Imagine that C is the Fa in this equation, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go. Oh, that's wrong. Fuck me. Hold on. Okay. There's our Lydian scale. Okay, so we have some C Lydian going on. So what notes are we using? What notes are we using when we use the C Lydian scale? Well, we're going C to D. We can chalk that in. So we're going from C to D. D to E. To F sharp. To G. To A. to B to C. So if that was the fourth degree of a G major scale, right? So that's the fourth of our G major scale. So that would be where we start our sacred pattern, wouldn't it? Because we're starting to work out where the sacred pattern starts, where Do is going to be. What if I was to label this note Do right now? Can we say with confidence that that's going to be Do? Let's figure it out. C to D, what's that? Is that a tone? D to E, is that a tone? Okay. E to F sharp, is that a tone? Right? F sharp to G, well, that's a semitone. G to A, there's your tone. A to B, right? There's a tone. B to C, that's a tone. Let's just fill in the rest of our chart here. That's looking pretty similar to our Ionian scale. The only difference is an F sharp. We'll talk about the differences in a little bit. All right, let's identify our sacred pattern now. Okay, and we're going to treat C as if it's Fa. Okay, and we can even do this one better, because look at us, right? So we're going to have Do be the root. Do is the tonic for our Ionian scales. Re is the tonic for our Dorian scales. Mi is the tonic. We didn't pencil that in for that guy, but it is. I don't think we have to keep going with the Do, Re, Mi. I think that you're going to get it, that we're treating it as if Fa is the root note. What would be the next one? Mixolydian. Which is going to be the fifth degree, which is going to be So. We're going to play So to So. Okay? But we're going to start on C. So let's just check it out. There's our Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian. Right? So what would happen if C was the note that we're using? What happens if C is the pitch that we're going to use for So? Right? What happens if C is the pitch that we're going to use for So? Well, then we're going to play the Mixolydian scale in C. Nope. Let's pull up our C Mixolydian. And let's just figure it out. Okay, so what notes are we using? C to D to E to F to G. Oh no, what are we doing wrong here? Is that an A? Well, that's not a B though, that's a B flat. And then C. So that one's looking real similar. Mixolydian and Lydian are looking real similar to each other, and they're both looking real similar to our Ionian scale. Just one thing is off. One semitone can change the vibe, like we were talking about earlier. The difference of one semitone can actually change the vibe. On the Dorian, we've got two that change. It changes the vibe. On the Phrygian, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to worry about that in a minute. I'll get to it because it does all connect later on, and there's more connections to be made. Okay, so we have the Lydian. Let's find our sacred pattern. C to D, that's a tone. D to E is a tone. E to F is a semitone. Okay, F to G, that's a tone. G to A, that's a tone. A to B flat, that's a semitone. B flat to C, that's a tone. C to D is tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone. And point out, you already know where it is because you could already tell it was going to be there because you're so smart and you figured all this out ahead of time. There's our sacred pattern again. I'm calling it the sacred pattern because it's literally in every scale. Well, maybe not every scale, but we'll get to the other scales another time because those are, they don't play by the rules at all, some of those scales. These are our diatonic scales. This is the scales of, Western classical music canons and so on. Okay, so what's the next one? Let's kind of burn through these last few here. What's after Mixolydian? What's going to be Aeolian, which is going to be the 6th degree, which is going to be La is our tonic, right? And then we know that C is going to be our 1. Okay? Now let's think about the Aeolian scale for a minute. You're going to know this one. Okay? Let's play our exercise. There's our C major. There's our D Dorian. There's our E Phrygian. There's our F Lydian. There's our G Mixolydian. There's our A Aeolian. might recognize that as the A minor scale. It's the minor scale, what we call the relative minor. So we have the major scale, which we consider to be the Ionian scale. We consider the Ionian scale to be the major scale. You will find out that there's actually several scales that have majors. What makes a scale a major? It's the third. It's the third degree. Whatever the third degree is, if the third is a minor third, it's a minor scale. If the third is a major third, it's a major scale. Now, all that time that we spent thinking about how the minor and major thirds work, that's your major, minor. Changing one semitone changes the vibe. And the changed vibe is real. It's a real sense of that we've changed the vibrations in the air. And that vibration makes you feel a different emotion because you're a human and you processed it. Right? Isn't that fucking wonderful? Isn't that magical? Let's focus on the C Aeolian scale, or we're going to call it the C minor scale because it's officially the C minor scale. We'll call it the minor scale. Okay? So what is it? Let's compare that to the major scale. Major, minor. Hopefully you can hear the subtle difference between those two. Just changing a couple of notes, which we'll figure out what that is. What's the first note in the minor scale? It's going to be C. What's the second note? That's a D. Let's get our marker ready. What's the next note? That's an E flat. Right? What's the next note? There's your F. There's a G. Well, there's an A flat. What is that? Is that a B or is that a B flat? That's a B flat. And then there's our C. So you're kind of going to see that we are using C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. And that for some of these scales, we're just changing. That's way out there. Right? We're just changing a couple of notes to be flattened. Right? So let's point out our tones and semitones again. C to D, tone. D to E flat, semitone. E flat to F, that's a tone. F to G is a tone. G to A flat is a semitone. A flat to B flat is a tone. B flat to C is a tone. C to D is a tone. Then we have semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. Where, I ask you, is the sacred pattern? There's your sacred pattern. Okay? Boom. It's all here. It's all happening. All right? What's the next one in? It's going to be the 7th degree. And it's going to be T. And we're going to call that the Locrian scale. Okay? Locrian's the weird one, they say. You can already hear that that's a different kind of vibe. So I want to go back to our little exercise that we've been going through and think about it again. Play our C major scale, C Ionian. D Dorian. E Phrygian. F Lydian. Mixolydian in G. A Aeolian. Or A minor. And then B Locrian. There it is. Okay, that's fun. Let's translate that so that we start on C and play that set of intervals. Right? There's our C. So let's look at what it is. So we were going C. We know that one, don't we? We know that C is going to be our root. The next note up is going to be D flat. Okay, the next note up, E flat. We're playing this as if it's the 7th degree of a major scale. Is the starting of our note? That's our 1, right? What's the next note up? Well, that's an F. What's the next note up? G flat. Next note up, A flat. Next note up, B flat. And then resolving to C. So that's such a weird sounding thing, right? That doesn't sound at all like our major scale, because you'll see here, it's actually got pretty much the most differences and dissonances of any scale. Let's mark out where we can find our thing. Here we go, a semitone there. That's going to be a tone there. E flat to F is a tone. F to G flat is a semitone. G flat to A flat is a tone. A flat to B flat is a, come on, tone. B flat to C is a tone. C to D flat, semitone. Semitone. Tone, tone, and tone. And then you already know where it's going to be. One more step back. Why am I doing all these, you ask? Don't worry about it. We're doing them. Don't worry about it. It's going to make sense later when we start to talk. We're almost done our diagram. I didn't switch the diagram again. This has been a total failure of a live stream. Am I even live still? What do we have? 0 drop frames, she says. And we've gone through this in just over an hour. Look at us. We're doing well. We're doing well. Okay, so what's the next one up? What's after Locrian? That's all of them, isn't it? There's our Locrian, by the way. If I can pull up the diagram for you there. So that's a fun one. Kind of a weird one, isn't it? Kind of a weird one. It's all over the place. Okay. So that's our, I don't know why it says C major Locrian. That's kind of a weird way to put it. This might not be the right diagram. Anyway, what I want to go through here is just if I start to change this diagram, right? So if I go C Ionian back to the beginning on our diagrams, you can see the top and left of your screen there. You can see the diagram for C Ionian. Look at the layout on the fretboard. That's all the notes in C Ionian. Just to reiterate all of this, okay? What if we go up to D Dorian, right? See how the diagram didn't actually change? It's just D Dorian has the same notes as C Ionian. Okay. Well, what if I went up to E Phrygian? There's our E Phrygian. Only the label changed because we're still going to use the same notes in E Phrygian. We're just going from E to E, right? Instead. And it's going to carry on like this. If I go to F Lydian, that's the same. The diagram isn't changing except the label, because F Lydian is the same as C Ionian and D Dorian and E Phrygian, right? And then what if I go G Mixolydian? What do you think is going to happen? G Mixolydian, exact same pattern on the guitar. We're just going from G to G instead. Okay? What happens if I play A Aeolian? Oh. Boom, there's your A Aeolian. The exact same fretboard markings again, except you would go from A to A instead. The root notes aren't marked on there, but you should know where the roots are. You should know the notes on your fretboard. That's all you have to learn. If you want to learn anything, learn that. Okay? Let's go to B Locrian. What do you think is going to happen if I click on B Locrian? It's the same fretboard. Okay? Exact same fretboard, exact same pattern. What can we glean from this? Well, what we can say is that let's take a look at where our sacred pattern begins, the notes that our sacred pattern begin on, right? So if I look at the notes of our sacred pattern for our Ionian scale, the beginning of our sacred pattern is C. So that's the C major scale. For a Dorian scale, C Dorian, right? We're playing a C Dorian scale. That is the relative Ionian would be your B flat. For a C Phrygian scale, the relative Ionian would be A flat. For the C Lydian scale, the relative Ionian would be G major. Okay? For the Mixolydian, the relative Ionian is going to be your F. For the Aeolian, the relative Ionian is going to be E flat. Locrian, the relative Ionian is going to be D flat. And you can see that when we count up from D flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we see that C is the 7th degree of a D flat major scale, because here is the sacred pattern that dictates your major scale. So if you go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, that's your major scale. If you go tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, that's your Dorian scale. If you go semitone, tone, 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 semitone, tone, tone, that is your Phrygian scale, and so on and so forth. Now, let's take a little note here of what's where. So if we take a look at the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th degree of every scale here, that would be what our chords are, right? So if we have, right, C to E, that's a 2-tone, that's a major 3rd, okay? So we're going to go, that's a major 3rd. If we go C to E flat, that's a minor 3rd. We're going 1 semitone down from our major 3rd. That's a minor 3rd. Okay? So if we go Phrygian, C to E flat, that's a minor 3rd. C to E in Lydian, that's a major 3rd. Mixolydian, C to E, major 3rd. Aeolian, C to E flat, that's a minor 3rd. Makes sense because that's our official D minor scale, right? And then if we go Locrian, C to E flat, that's another minor 3rd. My marker's kind of dying here, hang on. That's another minor 3rd. Okay? So if we play a chord with each of these, then when we go through the scale, we should play major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor. Something's gone wrong here. Has it? No, I think we're good. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor. Yeah. Except, let's look at the 5th degree of our scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From C to G, that's a perfect 5th. So we're playing a chord with a major 3rd and a perfect 5th. Okay? When we go C to G, perfect 5th. 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 C to G flat. Because it's Locrian. Because Locrian is loco, man. Okay? So what we're actually going to say is that it's not just a minor, but that it's a diminished minor. Because the 5 is flat. So if you're going to play chords throughout that, so let's imagine that instead of playing just our major scale, let's play the major scale, but let's turn all of those notes into their own chord. So we would go, the major chord is our C. That's our Do. And then our Re to Re is Dorian. That's a 2nd degree, but that's a minor 3rd. Right? Phrygian, that's a minor 3rd. Lydian, that's a major 3rd. Mixolydian, that's a major 3rd. There's Aeolian, that's a minor 3rd. Okay? And then we have Locrian, that's a minor 3rd, but it's also a flat 5th. So it's not a 5th, it's a flat 5th. Isn't that awkward? It's a diminished chord. So we're playing B diminished, B minor diminished, B major diminished? Not right. B minor diminished. There we go. And then we resolve to C. Now if I play these all in a row, let's play the chord and then play the scale associated. So we'll play our C major, C Ionian. And then play our D Dorian. And then our E Phrygian. And then our F Lydian. G Mixolydian. And then our A Aeolian. And then our B Locrian. And then our C major again. Okay, so see how we get a building of sort of tension and emotion? Now let's just play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, but just play all major chords. It doesn't sound melodic, right? There's a different vibe there. Let's change. We're going to play those chords. We're only going to do, well, only thing that we're going to change is that for some of them, we're going to flatten that major 3rd to a minor 3rd. And for one of them, we're going to flatten that perfect 5th to a flat 5th, right? So we're going to go major 3rd, minor 3rd, minor 3rd, major, major, minor, diminished, and then major. So we have a relationship where we know that because of which degree the different modes will take us to, because of the interval relationship between the 1st and the 3rd and the 1st and the 5th, that tells us what our chords should look like. We know that we're playing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do when we play different things. Now, to try and get a feel for what these sound like, you have an exercise that you can do. We've been doing it the whole time, where we're going to go play C Ionian, D Dorian, E Phrygian, F Lydian, so on and so forth, up and down the scale, from C to C, from D to D, from E to E, from F to F, using only our C Ionian notes, right? So we travel through all the different modes as we go up and down. So right? You can go down the same way. So try doing that for everything, and then think about what note you're playing. Start anywhere and think about, okay, well, if this is my A flat major, maybe I can't play that one. Let's play my A major. So if this is my A major, then what would this be? My B Dorian, and then my C sharp Phrygian, and then my D Lydian, and then my E Mixolydian, and then my F, my F sharp Aeolian. Okay, and then my B sharp. My A flat. No. Yeah, my A flat Locrian. And then my A Ionian again. Okay, so you can practice that set of scales anywhere, and you're going through all the modes. You're just going through a different mode for each one. Now, what would you do if you wanted to play all of them C to C, like we have in our diagram? So starting off with C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat, C. And then our Phrygian. So C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. Now think about the vibe that you're getting between the Phrygian. I mean, look at. Let's just think about what we have going on here for each of our things. So count up with me, right? If we go to the Dorian, that's kind of like our C major scale, except we have a flat third and we have a flat 7, right? So flat 7, flat third for our Dorian. What do we have for our Phrygian? 1, 2, 3, 4 flats, right? So D flat, E flat, F flat, A flat. So that's 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 7th. So flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7, and a minor 3rd, right? When we look at our Lydian, all we have is a sharp 4th. When we look at our Mixolydian, all we have is a flat 6. When we look at our Aeolian, we have a flat 3, we have a flat 6, and we have a flat 7. And we have a Locrian, flat 2, flat 3, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. Right? And there you go. I said 6, 7 for you. You fucking loser. So this is how you would kind of figure out how to play it if you wanted to just say, okay, well, I know what my major scale looks like. What if I flatten the 3rd and the 7th? What if I flatten the 2nd, the 6th, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th? What if I sharpen the 4th? Right? From the major. Okay? What if I flatten the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th? Right? What if I flatten the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th? Horrible noise in that Locrian mode. So there's your modes. How are we going to use them? Right? So this is where our diagram is going to help us a little bit more. What I'm going to do is, I don't think we really need the references for Do and Re on the actual chart. I think that that's crowding the chart. I might teach this whole thing again, just like kind of go through this whole lesson again with a little more clarity of like what I want to put in each spot, because we can probably just clean up a lot of this Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do business. And then I did it again down here, didn't I? I mean, it's good to kind of illustrate that, like, the concept is there of going from Do to Do. Okay. But where are our kind of key spots? So one thing that Beato says in his video is to focus on essentially the semitones. The semitones are going to be kind of a defining character. And I kind of like that idea, particularly if we look at Locrian and Phrygian. If we look at Ionian, that's a tone. C to D. The first step in our scale is a tone. Tone, tone. Okay? Semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Did you guys see that? There's the sacred pattern again. Unbelievable. It's magic, I tell you. It's magic that is part of reality. Isn't that wonderful, folks? Didn't that just light you up? Okay. So what are we looking at? We're looking at where are our semitones. So in our major scale, there's our semitone. There's our semitone. In our Dorian scale, you're going to see it's going to move back. Right? In our Phrygian scale, you're going to see it be on the first degree. Right? In our Lydian scale, you're going to see it be over here. Right? In our Mixolydian, ooh, we should maybe pencil these guys back in. Back in black. I did a terrible job erasing this. Okay, let's go back to our circlings. In our Mixolydian, we've got a semitone here, we've got a semitone here. Basically, we have two semitones in every scale. But as we look here, we're going to see that they're all different. They're all in different places. And so that's where our semitones are going. That's where our differences are going to be. That's where our magic is going to happen. So when we play the Dorian scale, so we're playing basically off of our 6 and 7 here, or rather our 5 to 6. So we're basically like, that's our 6th, right? That's our 5 and 6, or our 2 and 3. If we go to our, sorry, I'm way off the camera here. If we go to our Phrygian, right? This one is so interesting because it's one of the only ones, it's the only really useful one that has a flat second degree. Let's pull up our diagram for C Phrygian. Okay. Right? That's way off of our other scales because we have that flat second, that minor second. Okay, let's inspect the Lydian. So that's going to be our sharp 4. playing the wrong scale there. That's going to be our sharp 4 in the Lydian. There's our sharp 4. Then we have our Mixolydian, where it's going to be actually the 3rd to 4th is going to be our looking at our Aeolian, that's our minor scale. And then we have our Locrian. That's our minor 2nd. Okay, not a lot of talking going on there. I'm just playing with the different scales, and I'm hopefully illustrating that they all have a different effect on them, that they all have a different way of being, and hopefully this has been of help to somebody. And I'm just going to play out with our original exercise. If there's one thing you can take away, practice this, which is just going up and down in patterns of 8 on a major scale. Right? Ah! And there you have it, folks. So maybe that has explained some things about music theory, and maybe we've sort of we've explored our sacred pattern. We've found and decoded where our sacred pattern goes. Right? Here's a diminished chord for you. Isn't that scary? Like if I play a C diminished, there's our 1, our 3, and our 5. There's our 1, there's our minor 3rd, and there's our flat 5. It's almost like the exact opposite shape of the pretty chord, the prettiest chord, which is which is just basically just 2 fifths in a row. But it's actually like 1, 5, and then 2, 1 octave up. You've probably heard this one before and you don't even really realize it. What if I was to do something like... I said, hello, I'm waiting here for you, ever long. Tonight I throw myself into, I'm over my head and out of the red, she said. What would it be? I don't know what it would be. Anyway, we're probably going to end the live stream now because I'm just messing around. We're going to call it a day. Thank you for stopping by if you've managed to do so. I don't think anybody did. But hopefully I'll be able to like pull some stuff out of here. Actually, you know what? Maybe I should do like some kind of... maybe like some pickups kind of thing going on here. So this will just be largely... me playing a scale with the right diagram, so you can kind of ignore this. Okay, so we have the C Ionian. Nope, we have the C Ionian. We'll go see Dorian. Should I play it like this, kind of, so you can see the headstock? We'll do this later. I don't want to do this anymore. We explained the modes, we drew the diagram, we explored the sacred pattern. Hopefully there's something to glean off of this. Hopefully this is all mostly right information. I'm going to go have a coffee. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you if you came here. If you came all this way, leave a like. Please leave a like. And leave a comment that says, hey, you're a big dumb.